In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the power steering pump and reservoir on your Dodge Ram located on the front side of your engine. Using our 7/8 socket, we're going to go ahead and loosen and remove our lug nuts. Now that we have the lug nuts removed, let's go ahead and loosen, remove the wheel, and set that aside. I want to go ahead and find a little plug and plug off your expansion tank hose here. On the front section on your particular vehicle, you're probably going to have a bolt right here. Our particular one has a plastic clip or insert, so we're going to use our tool, pop out the center of this button. When this comes out, the tank has fluid in it, so you want to be careful that that does not drop. If you have your bolt, go ahead and remove that. Set that aside. Now you want to take the expansion tank, pull that up, swing that off to the side, and just let that rest. Now on our washer reservoir here, there are two electrical connectors. You want to go ahead and disconnect those. One of them in the middle of the tank has a little clip on it. You want to pull up on that clip. It's like a locking tab. And then press down on the center and it should release that little lock. We're going to use a pair of needle nose pliers just to pinch on that little tab there and wiggle this off. Go ahead and pop that off like so. And then there's a little connector right behind it. There's no locking tab on that one. It's a simple pinch and pull. We're going to use our needle nose pliers again on that one there. Now that we have both of those off, you want to go ahead and reach down and grab the bottom of the reservoir, and we're going to gently pull that up. Now there are two lock tabs. There's one on the top here that actually just kind of slide into the cooling fan shroud. So we're going to grab the base, try and dislodge the lower one, and pull up on this. Now, if this doesn't want to come up for you as easy as it should, you can simply go underneath the vehicle, use a handle of your mallet and just kind of bump the bottom up, pop that up and out of that little tab. Now I'm just going to use the handle of my mallet and gently bump this up. So after a few taps here, we're able to loosen that unit. Let's go back up on top and remove that. And go ahead and raise your reservoir. Now at this point here, you do have a hose at the bottom of your reservoir that goes to the pump. You can just pop that hose off the bottom, let it drain into a bucket. You can pull it off and plug that hose, but you are going to have your washer fluid in the tank. So you want to be careful when you separate this unit. I'm simply going to the bottom here. Our reservoir was empty. Simply going to wiggle this up and out. And when you pull this out, here are the two tabs that you're dislodging on the bottom. Now we want to go ahead and use a handheld vacuum pump, and we're going to open up our reservoir. Pop the cap off, set the cap aside. I want to go ahead and we're going to pull out the power steering fluid. Now what we're going to do is we're going to continue to do this until our reservoir is empty. You can go ahead and put that into a bucket. Once the tank is empty, go ahead and install your power steering reservoir cap. Use a flathead screwdriver. We're going to open up our radiator hose clamp here. Now we went ahead and we put a drain bucket underneath to catch any coolant that would come out from this upper radiator hose. We did not drain the radiator. Go ahead and slide that back. I'm going to wiggle the hose off. And what I'm going to do is I'm gently going to just wiggle the bottom off here and let some of that coolant seep out and just run down, and it's going to run down into my drain bucket there. This hose here has coolant in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to grab a strap and I'm going to pull this back and hold it back out of the way. Just use any securing strap you have around. Make sure that holds back here. Now I'm just going to wipe down some of the residual coolant that came out, and I'm just going to stuff a rag right here because a little bit more from the radiator might dribble out, but it's nothing major. Right here, there's going to be a bolt we need to remove on the driver's side, and there's one on the passenger side. Let's go ahead and remove those. Using our 13mm socket and our ratchet, let's go ahead and loosen and remove this bolt. Now we have that one out. Go ahead and repeat for the passenger side. Grab the fan shroud, and we're going to pull up just to dislodge this. Now we want to go ahead and remove our cooling fan. We're going to use this tool here. It's a 36mm. We're going to put this on the cooling fan nut on the front of the water pump. You can use a wrench if you want to, but it's going to be a lot more complicated to do that. Our tool here uses an air hammer. Lock that into place. Give this a few zaps. That loosens the nut, and we'll go ahead and spin that off. So we'll go ahead and remove this tool here. Now we can't pull the shroud without pulling that fan off. So we're going to go ahead and spin this off the water pump pulley shaft there. And once it separates, we'll lift the shroud out with the fan together. Now when the fan does separate, you want to be careful it doesn't fall and hit the radiator. You'll feel it when it gets to be pretty loose. It'll wobble a little bit. And we're getting there. So grab the fan, wiggle up on the shroud, separating its little tabs. You can reach in through the front of the shroud here. And remove it. We're going to use our 3/8 ratchet here, pop that in, and we're going to push down. That's going to release our belt. Work that belt off, and you can release the tensioner and remove your ratchet. On the bottom side of your power steering pump right here is the pressure line. We're going to use our 16mm wrench. We're going to loosen that nut. Now you are going to have power steering fluid come out of this here, even after we evacuated the reservoir of the fluid. You probably have some residual in the lines itself. So you want to go ahead and have a catch can or your bucket underneath to go ahead and catch that fluid. Now holding our power steering pump, there are 3 13mm bolts. If you rotate your pulley, so there's 12, 6, 9, and 3, behind 6 is a 13mm bolt, 9 o'clock there's another one, and at 12 o'clock there is another one. We're going to use our deep socket. We're going to go ahead and loosen and remove these bolts. Here is going to be the return hose. We want to go ahead and use our pliers. Work that hose off. I'm just going to try and twist that hose a little bit and work that off of the reservoir. Let's go ahead and work that return hose off there. Now at this point here, once we have the hard line disconnected, I want to go ahead and separate the pressure switch right here, this little connector. So we're going to press in on the little tab, remove the harness. Now that we have the hose off, I'm just going to slide their belt off the rest of the way if you haven't done that already. Go ahead and work the unit out of the truck and set it aside. Now let's go ahead and use our pulley puller tool here. Now we took our new pump assembly and we put some grease on the shaft here and a little bit on the pulley. I want to go ahead and line this up, and we're going to use our tool to reinstall the pulley onto the pump unit. I want to go ahead and continue to drive our pulley on until it's fully seated on the shaft here. And once it's all set, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the unit. Now that we have our pulley on, we're going to go ahead and install our bolts. We did go ahead and run these through the wire wheel machine, put a little bit of grease on the threads. Go ahead and spin your pulley so you can get the holes lined up for the pump. I'm going to slide that through. 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and line this up and get it bolted onto the engine. Go ahead and get this lined up. And let's go ahead and get those bolts started in there. let's go ahead and tighten down these bolts. At this point here, we can go ahead and install our lines onto the pump and the reservoir. Let's go ahead and press the return hose on here and go ahead and use your pliers. Go ahead and move that retaining clip or hose clamp back up into position. Gotta work that up, pop that on. Let's go ahead and get the hard line threaded into place here. Once you have this threaded into the pump, go ahead and use your 17mm wrench. And go ahead and snug that down. Now once that nut is seated, we'll go ahead and give that a little extra. You just want to make sure that that is seated pretty tight, but you don't want to make it super, super tight, but you'll feel it stop. Go ahead and take your pressure sensor harness. Go ahead and line that up. You'll feel and hear that click into place. Go ahead and put your ratchet in the tensioner. I'm going to open that up. Go ahead and stretch that belt into place. Might be easier to run it around the idler here. Make sure the belt is completely on all of your other pulleys. And release that. And we're going to take our fan and we're going to put it inside of the shroud. And we're going to go ahead and lower our shroud down into position. Now as we're doing this here, you want to pay attention. You want to pay attention. This portion here, this little tab, there's one on the driver's side as well, over here. We'll actually lock into the tabs on the radiator itself. So as you lower that down, you want to go ahead and get that ready to line up. Put our fan inside, lower this down. So now that we just have our shroud kind of in place, we can go ahead and get our fan itself lined up on the water pump. And let's go ahead and start to thread that on. Once you get that started, most cases you can just grab that fan, spin that on. And you see that the nut has stopped because it's fully seated. Now if you have your wrench, go ahead. You can go ahead and tighten that down. In our case, we're going to use our tool to go ahead and give that a little zap and snug that into place. Just going to drop our tool in there. And we're just going to give this a couple little blips here with the tool and snug that down. That is plenty tight. We're going to install our bolt here for our fan shroud. I'm going to get that threaded in. Go ahead and repeat for the passenger side. Just want to snug those down into place. I'm going to go ahead and release our strap here holding our upper radiator hose. Remember, there's fluid in this hose, so you want to be careful bringing this back. Line that up. Slide that into place, and then we could bring our hose clamp into position. Use your flathead screwdriver and go ahead and snug that down. Make sure it's good and snug. Now let's go ahead and install our washer reservoir right here. Now we're going to install the hose on the bottom. Then we're going to reconnect our connectors here. When lowering this down into position, these two tabs are going to lock into the bottom of the fan shroud itself, as well as the upper portion will lock into securing this in place. Take your expansion tank here, swing this around, and don't forget to remove the plug. If you put a cap in this here, go ahead and pop that out. Swing this over, put the two tabs on the bottom into the shroud, line this up. Now if you have a bolt here, go ahead and install your bolt. We have a plastic push clip that was in ours. Go ahead and pop that in. Go ahead and open up your radiator cap. You want to go ahead and use the appropriate coolant recommended by the manufacturer. Go ahead and drop your funnel in place. And we're just going to go ahead and top off the system. We're going to go ahead and fill up our power steering system here. So go ahead and twist off that cap. On here, it's going to have a full hot and an add. So we're going to go ahead and add fluid to this here. Use a funnel. You want to make sure that's nice and clean. Use the recommended power steering fluid for the model application. Now what you want to do is just kind of eyeball, look inside there. You don't want to fill this up to the top because this dipstick here is going to go in and give you your level readings. So one side has a full cold and add, the other side is a full hot and add. We're going to use the full cold. Go ahead and twist that in, twist it out. Then you want to go ahead and check that level on there. Full cold, we could go ahead and add some fluid to this here. Let's go ahead and drop your funnel back in and add a little bit more. Be sure to clean off your dipstick and then go ahead and do that again. You're just going to continue to do this until you get the appropriate reading. We are at the full cold mark, so we're going to go ahead and secure that, twist that on. At this point here, what you want to do is go ahead and, with the vehicle front wheels off the ground, go ahead and start up the vehicle. Crank that steering wheel left and right. You want to make sure that you get any air bubbles out of the system. At that point there, go ahead and put your wheels back on, if you did remove them, and go ahead and drive the vehicle, give it a test run, come back and check that fluid. Go ahead and set your wheel back on. Let's go ahead and get all of our lug nuts started by hand. Once we have all these on, we're going to go ahead and snug them down. Let's go ahead and torque down our lug nuts to 135 foot-pounds.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.